Now, the Gal Gadot drama with Snow White is not just limited to both Gal and Rachel Zegler, but it's also associated between both Gal Gadot and the Walt Disney Company, and exactly what's going on between Bob Iger as the Disney CEO, the Disney executives, the board of directors over there, that are all in a state of panic related to Snow White. Now, we already know that the box office situation is not looking good at all.
Welcome back to Celebrity. It's Olivia here. Gal Gadot is not backing down. Disney thought they could bury the drama with Rachel Zegler, patch it all up with a fake PR tour, and quietly sweep Snow White's $300 million disaster under the rug. But Gal, she's not playing damage control. She's going legal. Before we peel back the layers of this wild unraveling, make sure to smash that like button and hit subscribe. If you love deep dives with no fluff, just facts, receipts, and a sprinkle of chaos, you're in the right place. And trust me, you won't believe how this one plays out. According to inside reports, Gal Gadot is preparing to sue Disney for what she claims was a deliberate act of career sabotage. And her target? Not just some random editor. She's going straight for Bob Iger, director Mark Webb, and the entire executive chain of command. Here's what sparked it. Gal claims Disney intentionally used her worst takes in Snow White, scenes she says were never supposed to see the light of day. She filmed reshoots in 2023 and again in late 2024, with a firm agreement that certain awkward or flat performances would be excluded from the final cut.
Gal is pressing to take legal action against Disney, also because she was specifically promised that those scenes would never actually make it to the final cut of Snow White, and is already blaming Disney as the cause of damages made to her acting career and her reputation. To make matters worse for Bob Iger is that Gal Gadot is about to go public about the promises that were broken by the Walt Disney Company when she goes on a podcast run during the month of June, where she will begin to drop bombshells related to the production of Snow White, to share they were involved in multiple cases of discrimination on the set of Snow White, and also blaming Gal for showing up late for certain scenes, when in reality she was on time and on schedule according to herself.
But when the movie dropped, they used them anyway. Roughly 11 takes according to sources, each one described as her worst performances. Not only that, but these exact scenes were trimmed to awkward lengths, chopped up and thrown into the final edit without context. And now, critics are slamming her acting. Fans are mocking her delivery and casting directors. They're suddenly ghosting her. This wasn't just an editing mistake. To Gal, it feels like a hit job, and she's ready to name names. So here's where it flips from bad editing to something way darker. Gal Gadot's legal team has been digging, and what they're uncovering might make this one of the most explosive Hollywood lawsuits in years. Their theory? Disney deliberately tanked Gal's performance in Snow White, not because of talent issues, but because of politics and optics. According to internal sources, there was a very clear pattern. Gal's strongest takes, gone. Her sharpest lines, cut mid-sentence. Her facial expressions, chopped or placed out of emotional context. And worst of all, she wasn't informed about these changes until the premiere. That's when it hit her. This wasn't post-production sloppiness. This was intentional character assassination.
What's interesting here has a lot more to do with Gal Gadot and a whole legal route that she's beginning to take against Disney. Let's get into this. Now, interestingly enough, we know that Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot have been engaged in a lot of, issues over the years, ever since this movie was filmed back in 2022, had some reshoots in 2023 and again in 24, and a little minor round of reshoots toward the later half of that year. We already know that Snow White is dealing with a lot of problems, not just financially, but now they're going into legal issues. They're going into a lot of problems as well with the FCC. I will have a lot more to talk about that down the road once that develops further. But one thing is for certain is that Gal is very furious against Disney for what they did to her overall character, the Evil Queen, and exactly how she's actually taking action. Now, with the Snow White drama only getting worse ever since Disney lost,
Gal was promised a version of the Evil Queen that was empowering, fierce, complex. But what audiences saw was robotic, disjointed, and almost laughable. Critics called her performance cartoonish. And suddenly, Gal Gadot, a literal Wonder Woman, was trending for all the wrong reasons. And here's where the lawsuit gets spicy. Gal's lawyers are pointing to verbal assurances made by the director, Mark Webb, and Disney producers, promising that rough takes would only be used for internal calibration, not for theatrical release. That's the kind of promise that, when broken, opens the door to contract violations and even defamation. But there's more. Behind the scenes, Gals can't believe she became collateral damage in the Rachel Zegler PR nightmare. Disney needed someone to deflect from Zegler's endless controversies. Her now infamous interviews trashing the original Snow White, fans boycotting the film, and the political war she brought to the table. And who better to subtly throw under the bus? Gal Gadot, outspoken, Israeli, and already a lightning rod for political criticism. It's not just sabotage, it's targeted. And Gal's had enough. Inside Disney's Burbank headquarters, panic is the new normal. Gal Gadot's lawsuit isn't just a celebrity tantrum, it's a ticking legal bomb, and executives know it. Because if she proves even part of her claim, that the studio knowingly included damaging takes and broke promises, then Disney's entire live-action strategy could collapse like a house of cards. Why? Because it sets a precedent. If one A-list actress successfully sues Disney for editorial sabotage, what's stopping others from doing the same? What about actors in The Little Mermaid, Peter Pan and Wendy, or the upcoming Hercules remake? Disney's already skating on thin ice with fans. The last thing they need is a courtroom full of receipts and angry celebrities. According to insider reports, Disney execs have frozen all marketing plans related to Snow White. Merchandise lines have been paused. International premieres? Canceled. And some sources say the company is even considering a quiet early streaming drop just to kill the conversation faster.
That already Gal Gadot is warning to take legal action against the Walt Disney Company and is planning to actually sue the company after learning about what they did with her character known as the Evil Queen. Already Gal Gadot recently made claims internally over at the Disney Company against those that handled the film, both in the corporate ladder and the creators behind the movie, that those like Bob Iger, director Mark Webb, and the writers of Snow White deliberately chose the worst scenes and takes that Gal Gadot performed for Snow White, and how this is giving her a bad reputation in her acting career within the industry, and already based on reviews of her subpar acting in the film.
But here's the wildest part. Gal's legal action may be triggering an internal audit of the entire Snow White production. Emails, edit logs, rough cut timelines. Every moment from post-production is being picked apart to determine who made the final decision to include those rough takes. And if her lawyers can show a pattern of intent, if even one email says, "This makes her look weaker," or "Let's go with the awkward version," Disney is cooked. Add that to the already smoldering fire of Rachel Zegler's controversies, from her viral clips mocking the original film to the fan backlash that refused to die, and you've got a company at war with its own crown jewels. Gal Gadot didn't just step into court, she cracked the vault.
And now, every executive who thought this could be buried is watching their careers hang by a thread. If Gal Gadot's lawsuit is the explosion, then Rachel Zegler is the aftershock. Because now that Gal is taking the gloves off, it's not just about bad editing, it's about why it happened. And guess who's sitting dead center in that why? Rachel. Let's be clear, Rachel Zegler came into Snow White swinging. From her press tour soundbites calling the 1937 film weird and creepy, to her viral moment trashing the idea of a prince at all, she ignited a fan revolt that still hasn't cooled down. Disney thought she'd be the fresh face to reboot a legacy. Instead, she became a PR disaster in heels. And now, Gal's legal team is implying that Rachel's mess may have forced Disney to scapegoat someone else, namely, Gal Gadot. Gal was easy to target. She's powerful, yes, but she wasn't the film's lead. And with political heat swirling around her background, Disney saw an opportunity. Use her bad takes to distract from Rachel's real-time implosion. Let the headlines focus on Gal's bad acting, and maybe the world forgets that their lead actress single-handedly insulted the source material.
Now, Disney's legal team is already preparing for the day Gal decides to move ahead after making these intense warnings against the Disney company, and she is said to be very serious about it as well. Since Gal claims that she lost the trust from many producers in Hollywood, though not all, but due to her worst takes that were placed in the final cut of the film, a lot of Hollywood producers, top ones at that, were turned off.
But now, that cover is blown. Gal's case shines a giant spotlight on the toxic, behind-the-scenes choices Disney made. And it's not just about Snow White anymore. It's about trust, integrity, reputation. Studios are watching, agents are whispering, big names are reconsidering whether they want to work with Disney at all. And as for Rachel, she's become so controversial that internal sources claim she's been quietly removed from future casting conversation. Publicly, Disney is silent. Privately, they're done betting on her. This was supposed to be her Cinderella moment, her chance to become the next Disney darling. But now, she's not the next princess. She's the cautionary tale. And Gal, she may walk away from this not just vindicated, but respected. Because while Zegler leaned into the drama, Gal took it to court. This isn't a delay. This isn't a re-edit. This is a burial. Behind Disney's glossy branding and tight-lipped executives, something is quietly happening. Snow White is being slowly erased. No new trailers, no press tour, no confirmed release date. And now, with Gal Gadot's lawsuit threatening to expose everything, Disney is seriously considering the unthinkable. Shelving the film entirely. Here's the cold truth. Snow White has gone from Disney's crown jewel to its most radioactive project in decades. What began as a bold reimagining has become a flaming wreck of bad press, feuding stars, fan backlash, and now, legal action that could unearth the studio's ugliest instincts. And it doesn't end with just this one film. Executives are now reassessing the entire live-action remake pipeline. Hercules, Tangled, The Princess, and the Frog. Projects once in active development are now on hold, with some insiders saying they'll be quietly killed off to avoid another PR nightmare. Because Snow White wasn't just a financial risk, it damaged the brand badly. Gal Gadot, meanwhile, is taking this as a stand, not just for her reputation, but for every actor who's been tossed aside, edited into irrelevance, or turned into a scapegoat for studio failure. And whether she wins in court or not, she's already won the moral battle. Rachel Zegler? She's vanished from the conversation. Her future at Disney? Non-existent. There's no redemption arc waiting in the wings. No last-minute PR fix. Her name now triggers eye rolls, not excitement. And Disney? They've lost the one thing they could never afford to lose, the audience's trust. Because people don't just go to Disney for movies, they go for magic, for heart, for the feeling that stories still matter. And Snow White, this Snow White, was the reminder that even the biggest studio in the world can forget what a fairy tale is supposed to feel like. So here we are. A $300 million disaster, 2 feuding stars, 1 looming lawsuit, and the most iconic Disney princess, possibly never seeing the light of day.